What is up, my Squirtleites? It is I, your king, welcoming you back to more talk about the patch notes regarding the Taken King, regarding patch 2.0. This time we're talking about probably the most important part of this entire patch, and that is the weapons. Okay, they finally fixed the weapons, and we're here to talk about that, or at least that's what they say. You're seeing the footage for yourself, so you probably know a little bit better than I do, as I'm recording this before I'm even getting to play. But hopefully everything's balanced out. From what I saw, I have watched maybe about 2 hours of Crucible gameplay today, and from what I saw, things seem mostly balanced. However, the one thing I never got to see was legendary hand cannons and how they perform. So, we're going to talk about weapons in this video. If it doesn't run too long, I would like to also get into the exotic weapons as well. In the next video, we will talk about the remainder of the stuff on this in the patch notes. And then, for the fourth video, we'll actually get into... We'll be able to actually explore around and take a look at what stuff's been actually changed with 2.0 in-game. So, start with auto rifles. Base damage increased across all archetypes. Damage fall-off now starts closer to the player to emphasize its role as a close-range weapon. Base stability reduced slightly. Landing consistent precision shots require more weapon control, and also landing consistent shots from a longer range requires more weapon control. Damage done against AI combatants increased by 30%. I believe it was 10% when they initially announced these patch notes a while back. Auto rifles, I feel like they're going to be in a good place again. They're not doing too much to them. They're putting them back in their place in PvE. In PvP, they're just doing enough to eclipse them, because the problem with auto rifles was before they kept nerfing them just a little bit, and they were still the strongest, still the strongest, still the strongest, and then it just took that one little hit to drop them from the strongest to the worst. And they have to find that middle ground, and I think they found it here. They're just trying to make them more close range. I'm not still entirely sure how I feel about them being more close range oriented, but considering the size of most maps, I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem. I think they'll just be flat out useless in maps like First Light, Bastion, Skyshock, which are, by the way, coming back to the regular playlist. Just an FYI. But we'll get into that later. Pulse rifles. All stable, low recoil pulse rifles, such as the Hopscotch Pilgrim, Three Little Words, the Messenger, all of which I've had, by the way, and I love them all to death. Now use medium rate of fire base stats, meaning I'm assuming this means that their impact has been reduced, their rate of fire has been increased. They have now fallen more into the category of like the 5.5A All Fate, or what's another example of pulse rifles? I'm trying to think of a few. I think the Aegis of the Kel was one. I feel like the rest are all high rate of fire that I'm thinking of. Medium pulse rifle's rate of fire has slightly increased, but with base damage reduced slightly. PvP burst to kill. All precision hits, regardless of pulse rifle, is 2 or 3, depending on the victim's armor stat. Magazine size increased on all base stats. This is great. Pulse rifles definitely needed this. Base stability reduced slightly, landing consistent precision shots require more weapon control, and damage done against AI combatants increased by 25%, also very needed. I felt like pulse rifles were virtually useless in PvE. I did not like using them. Now I feel like I'll actually want to use them. Pulse rifles, I feel like this is a good change. They didn't honestly do too much, but they just didn't want these super overpowered pulse rifles like we were getting with the Messenger and Hopscotch Pilgrim. For instance, okay, I'm just going to give you an example. I have a Hopscotch Pilgrim, okay? My Hopscotch Pilgrim has the following perks: Feeding Frenzy and Reactive Reload. Now, here's the thing about Reactive Reload, okay? This is one of the most ridiculous perks in the game, and Feeding Frenzy does not help. Reactive Reload, off of a reload, regardless of a headshot kill. In fact, it doesn't even have to be a kill with the Hopscotch Pilgrim. If I reload my weapon after killing with anything, within like 2 or 3 seconds of killing anything, regardless of how I do it, Reactive Reload activates. Then I get a 3-second period where my headshots do 51 per bullet, meaning 153 on a single burst to the head, or I can basically two-shot people in the body. I can two-shot people in the body. And then Feeding Frenzy activates, which gives me that fast reload, meaning I can just continually two-shot on the body with Reactive Reload over and over as long as I keep finding enemies in Crucible. Yeah, that's a little bit overpowered, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, very overpowered. But that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to fix that kind of thing. I still think that my particular Hopscotch Pilgrim is going to be very overpowered for that very reason. But that's besides the point. We'll get into that later. Scout Rifles. Okay. Base damage increased slightly from medium to high. So basically, I'm thinking medium to high rate of fire Scout Rifles. Small adjustment does not change shots per kill in PvP against another Guardian with full health. So this is referring to like the Mida multi-tool, not the Badger, the NL Shadow 50X, the one Sinistat, like basically anything but like the Galleon's Demise or the Scholar. Those are the only ones that this is not affecting. So it's doing a small adjustment. What I'm assuming is, so like for instance with Mida multi-tool is a 4-shot to the head and they die. It does 220 with 4 shots to the head, but if they were to like buff each shot, which does 55 up to like let's say 60, it's still 4 shots to kill. Or freak 65. It's still 4 shots to kill unless their armor's super low. So maybe like 62 or 63 or something like that. If they were even to go that high, it would still be the same amount of shots. So I'm not entirely sure how much that's changed, but I think they did a very small adjustment, so it's probably not that much. I keep saying magazine wrong. Magazine size increased on all base stats, so every single Scout Rifle gets a magazine increase. Thank goodness for those 13, 14, 15 mag Scout Rifles. Makes me wish I had my Saturnine Rapier again. Accuracy when firing from hip is reduced. Makes sense. Damage done against AI combatants increased by 5%, so Scout Rifles are even a little bit better. It makes me wish I had my Galleon's Demise with Firefly and Outlaw now. Ugh. Or my Saturnine Rapier, which was the same thing. Hand cannons. Now this is the one I'm still a little bit iffy about, but I don't know exactly how it's going to change. I still have to test it with my baby, the Fulcrum from Future War Cult and House of Wolves. If it doesn't affect it too much, I'll still be okay with this. Damage fall-off distance has been reduced to be closer to the player to limit long-range lethality. Makes sense. Accuracy while aimed down sights reduced slightly, making long-range snap shooting less reliable. Not sure about that one. Accuracy when firing from a hip is reduced. Okay with this, but how is that going to affect the last word? I don't know. Magazine size reduced on all base stat settings. I hate that one. Base optics reduced, so aiming down sights grants more width in favor for death, which is actually probably better. I would say that's a buff. I do not like the magazine size thing. I don't think this needed to apply to all hand cannons. Legendary hand cannons were fine. It was just the exotics that were overpowered. Thorn, Last Word, and Hawkmoon. They were the overpowered ones. But guess what? At the end of all this, I don't even think Hawkmoon's changing. Freak. Thorn is getting nerfed properly. Last Word's getting nerfed properly. I'm pretty sure Hawkmoon's staying exactly where it is. It just can't one-shot people anymore. So they just nerfed a bunch of legendary hand cannons, which didn't need nerfing. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I still have to test it out for myself. Okay, now for the infamous shotguns. Shotgun precision damage grants a 10% bonus damage. It was 25%, so it does a little bit less on precision. Shot package burst reduced the cone spread by 20%. It was 50%. Rangefinder perk adds a 10% base range increase on zoom. Was 20, so they cut that in half. Now here's the one that pisses everybody off. But honestly, well, I don't know yet. Damage done against AI combatants reduced by 45%. Meaning, they had originally doubled shotgun's power in PvE. Now they've reduced it by 45%, which effectively means 90% down from 200, meaning we're back down to 110. So only 10% better than what they used to be back when shotguns were useless. I think that was a little too much. I can see them dropping it down to maybe down to like the 140 area, so it was 40% better, or even 50 than what it originally was. But dropping it down to just 10% above 100, unless the math's wrong and they phrased this incorrectly, which I think it is. I honestly do think they phrased that wrong. I want to say they reduced it 45% down from the 200 it was at. So I want to say it's like at 165 now or something or 155, sorry. I want to say it's at that now, but I don't think it is. I don't think that's the case, unfortunately. So shotguns might be useless in PvE again. That could get a lot of backlash. If they're absolutely useless, I'm sure it'll be fixed soon. Sniper rifles only had one change, and it's the best possible change you could ever ask for on snipers. Final round perk now buffs precision damage, not base damage. This change only affects this perk when combined with sniper rifles. Final round perk can be back on is the same on everything else, but for sniper rifles, only on precision shots. No more cheesing. Good riddance. Anybody that used it, I don't even feel bad for you. Screw off. Okay, fusion rifles. Fusion rifles now no longer get more accurate with each projectile fired. So, I don't know really about this. I didn't really feel like that fusion rifles got more accurate the more you fired, but apparently that was a thing. Fusion rifles that are slow charging high impact now have a slightly lower base range value, making it harder to max out. This makes sense. Let me bring you up a picture of my Purifier 7 from the new Monarchy, and you can see why this change needed to be made, okay? Now, to be fair, mine's a rare breed. It happened to get the perfect set of perks to have pretty much god-tier stats across the board, okay? Okay, because this came from Vanilla Destiny, back when there was pretty much no bounds to what a weapon could get. It's overpowered. It really is. I can, even back during the Taken King, or before during Taken King, sorry, during House of Wolves, when fusion rifles were in their worst spot, I could still destroy in Crucible with the thing, because I could shoot things across the room, no problem, and kill it with the thing. It was awesome. And, honestly, in using something like that, it feels right, okay? It really does feel right. If you had a plug one, same thing. Some fusion rifles definitely needed this. Accuracy increased for low-range fusion rifles. Accuracy reduced for high-range fusion rifles. So now weapons like Plan C are more accurate. Weapons like my Dead Orbit fusion rifle, which I absolutely love, is now increased. But accuracy is now reduced for my Purifier. Max fusion rifle projectile speed decreased slightly, so now you have to actually lead combatants a little bit more, which you already kind of had to do. And damage done against AI combatants increased by 15%, making them now viable in PvE again. I like that one. That was not there in the original patch notes. It's there now. That makes me happy. Sidearms. Base reload speed increased. It's already super fast, but I guess they're just trying to make it instant pretty much, because that would be the best thing to help sidearms, considering they're practically useless. I'm not a fan yet, but then again, who knows? Apparently there's one of the Taken King fusion sidearms is amazing. And ammo stats for sidearms have been reduced to match other secondaries, but still retain starting bonus ammo. So I guess they have smaller mags, or maybe smaller in reserve. I don't know. I'm wondering this because when I would start a match with the Vestian Dynasty, it would have like 102 in the clip, and I think they're just trying to reduce that for PvP, so that it's more on par with like with shotgun snipers, where they start with only like 7 rounds. But I mean, in correlation to sidearms. Now, and oh, hey, look, my update file just finished downloading, so I'm going to have to go get to that now. Rocket launchers. Blast radius distance slightly increased, but grenades and horseshoes perk proximity detonation reduced to 1.3 meters. It was 2 meters. Thank goodness for this. 2 things. 1, no more freaking rockets blowing up in your face when an enemy gets close. I mean, that still could possibly happen, but not as much. Thank freaking goodness. And now you can actually, when you're shooting at a group, it just won't hit the guy in front and kill only him. It'll kill everything in the center if you aim correctly. I like this. These are all good changes. Machine guns. Fixed an issue with all Dead Orbit machine guns where attached play-still plate failed to animate properly on reloads. I didn't even notice this because I run an Arma Engine DOA, and I had the Dead Orbit machine gun from Dark Below for a long time as well, and I never noticed this. Apparently this was a thing. Damage done against AI combatants increased by 5%, so they're a little bit more viable. Thunderlord is also about to become possibly one of the kings of PvE. This makes me excited. I am a huge Thunderlord fan. So now, let's go on to the exotics. Well, actually, let me check my time real quick. You know what? Actually, I think we're going to have to save that for the next video. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so very much for watching. In the next video, I will be covering everything regarding the exotic and legendary, a couple legendary weapons, and actually only meaning 1. And then also weapon perks, and then hopefully moving on to some of the later stuff. It looks like we actually might have to go into a 4th video for all of this. There are a lot of patch notes to cover. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.
Show them that you've got this. Zone C lost. You're almost there. Zones controlled. Targets eliminated. Nice work.